What would you say to that surgeon now, if you could chat to her, if he was here?
I want to be very clear about this because a lot of people take this the wrong way.
Is there proof that humans are carnivores? Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome to my channel where I review and debunk nutritional information online. In this video, we're going to hear from an individual who has had a colon removal, and so his fecal matter comes out into a bag where the colon used to be. So he can actually see, observe, and talk about what he eats and what comes out the other end. At the end, they argue this means we humans should be carnivores. Be sure to wait till the end to hear my final thoughts. I want to invite you to join my free webinar, Beyond Cholesterol, the 2 biggest risk factors for cardiovascular disease. If you're confused about cholesterol or feeling pressured to take medication to lower your cholesterol, this webinar is for you. I'll provide the facts you need to understand why cholesterol isn't the most important factor in assessing your risk for cardiovascular disease, and what you should focus on instead to better reduce your risk. See the link in the description to sign up.
I want to be very clear about this because a lot of people take this the wrong way. I don't have a colon, right? And where my bag starts is where my colon would begin. If I did have my colon, which I have had, I didn't know any of this stuff. So what I will say now with having the bag is not what I would have said before when I had my colon. When food enters your colon, your body is going to reabsorb all of the water and the sodium, and it's being condensed, and the color is just all the same. And when you go for a poop, even if you looked, you might see some peas and corn and sweet, stuff like that. I think everybody has. You don't see it. You still see some sort of evidence of the plants, but you're not going to see it to the extent that I do.
Well, always consider the source. This is not a doctor, but he's someone who has this experience that he's talking about. I can't really think that I was taught this in medical school. Maybe seen some people in residency, or if you're a surgeon, you've talked to people who've had colon removal for a colectomy. He had a disease of the colon and had it removed. So the idea that the colon is the water reclaiming system of the intestine is true. So the water comes in, or the stool comes in watery at one side, marches across the colon like you saw, and the job of the colon is to take back or suck it back in the water if your body's low on water. In fact, you can kind of gauge your water balance. If your stools are hard, it means your body thinks it's low on water. If the stools are normal consistency, then your water balance is fine. So, you have to just take this individual's word for it. But if you've had a similar experience, please let me know your experience down below. If you had a colectomy or ileostomy or what you see in your fecal matter.
Because it comes out as a liquid. You won't find any recognizable meat.
Yeah.
You won't see, oh, that's lamb. It's just like liquid. And the way I would describe it to people is take Weetabix or something, or a grain, very dry, crush it to a dust, pour this dust into a bag, pour water into that bag, enough so that the content can't absorb all the water. Okay, so it's quite liquidy.
Quite saturated.
Right. That's what it all looks like. All meat, eggs, dairy, all this stuff. The colour might change if I have more dairy.
Yeah.
But the consistency is liquid because our stomach acid, being very, very low, highly acidic, 1.4 to 2, breaks this stuff down to a liquid. No problem whatsoever. It's supposed to. And we do that in less than 2 hours.
Yeah, so what he's showing is the slurry or digested food. In order for it to get absorbed through the intestinal lining, it needs to be pulverized and put down broken down into the building blocks of fatty acids, amino acids, simple carbohydrates, things like that. And so when you hear people talk about fiber or not having enough roughage, those are things that stay in the body and come out the other end. Humans don't have an enzyme called cellulase, which breaks down cellulose, which is in the celery, the other vegetable material. So if it's basically cellulose, it's going to go through your body undigested. Some people think that's a good thing. I'm not so impressed with the science about fiber and fiber supplements in particular, but the idea that this gets broken down this is true. And there was a brief image of different acidity of different stomachs, and the human is very acidic compared to other animals. It's more like the vulture or other carnivores, a lion, which is one of the arguments that maybe a human, was supposed to or does well as a carnivore because it has a very acidic stomach.
Yeah.
If you were to eat a meal, 2 hours later, it's liquid in your body. Now, obviously, then it goes into small intestine, we absorb the nutrients, then it would hit the colon or hit my bag. So as it's hitting my bag, plants, for example, if I had a Sunday roast, you're seeing the colours, you're seeing these structures. And if I were to cut, I always use the same example, if I was to cut a pyramid shape into a piece of pineapple, mango, the broccoli stem, mushroom, and just swallowed that, that will not change whatsoever as it enters your colon. That's the exact state that it's in. So we'll go down into your stomach, your small intestine, out your ileum, hits the colon in complete tact, basically. Because I had seen it, and you start to think, it is strange I'm seeing all these plants, right? But, being silly, and you order a pizza and something, and you've got mushroom on there, and you're just chowing it down. You're probably not even really chewed that part of the mushroom. All of a sudden, I'm having to push above my stomach to allow, because it's a problem, it's getting blocked. Push this out and boom, there's a mushroom. There's a mushroom in the bag. It doesn't change, A whole mushroom. If you swallow a mushroom, that's not going to change. It will not break down. It's just like eating rubber.
You saw a mushroom go into your bag.
Baby button mushroom, yeah.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, that's how it, and at the very top of the list as well, in this little booklet that I took home, foods that might cause you problems, gas. Mushrooms are right at the top. So I always put them at the very top, and they're not like fibrous plants, they're different, but all plants are the same. So if you cut a pyramid shape into a mango, make people say, mango's not that fibrous. It's very, very fibrous.
You can see the stringy bits.
It's super fibrous, but they might say, it's really high in soluble or insoluble. It's like, it doesn't matter. All of it goes into the toilet. We don't break that down, that both block nutrients, both cause issues with digestion, both create gas. There's nothing good about this. And if I've got a bag and I just ate loads of mushrooms and onions, I remember having an Indian takeaway right before I went carnivore. There's quite a few times, and this is almost always the case. I would wake up and put my hand in my bag, and it's just balloon full of air.
Yes, so it's true that the carbohydrates when they hit the colon, create gas. And so you may notice that you're passing more gas when you eat carbs, and the anti-flatulence organizations kind of have known this and teach low carb diets, and the carbs are turned into gas by the colonic bacteria. He no longer has the colon or the colonic bacteria, but still has gas being formed. And that's one of the things that changes on a keto or a carnivore diet. You're cutting down the sugars and starches, and less gas is formed.
It's just air, all from the mushrooms and the onions and everything that they would put into a curry. All of this stuff. So it's promoting.
You would have just farted that out, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting. I can see what the most fibrous plants are, the things that don't break down, the things that create the most gas. It's all plants.
Yeah.
Meat doesn't create a lot of gas at all. In fact, really, the only gas that I will produce in the bag now will be for eating, taking the air down, not through not through the food being
while you're eating or something.
Exactly. So for the first time, I'm sort of thinking, this is really weird. Why have I not questioned this before? Because even before I went carnivore, I had the bag. I never found chicken. I never found pork. I never found beef. I never found lamb. Always found the plants. Always.
Yeah.
And because it's quite liquidy, because my colon hasn't had the chance, because I don't have one, to reabsorb the water, you see the colours, you see the shapes. You can identify clearly. I mean, if I had a roast dinner, say today, and I saw you and just showed you through the peak window, you would be able to tell, right, so you've eaten broccoli, sweet corn. You would be able to tell me what I've eaten in terms of plants, but you wouldn't be able to tell me what I've eaten in terms of animal products.
So, but let's think of the logic of this. Just because you eat something and you don't absorb it, does that mean you shouldn't have it? Could there be some other benefit of having the roughage or fiber, like regularity? For example, most people have less frequent bowel movements when they eat a low carb or carnivore diet once you're through all of the transition period. And you're actually more efficient, you're eating less, there's less fecal matter, and you go less often. But sometimes that can make hard stools hard to pass stools, so you need to watch the water, the electrolytes, and some people argue the roughage would help. And the method that I learned and studied and published papers on, there is an allowance for some leafy greens and non-starchy vegetables, but it's not very much. So it's interesting to see there may be a balance here. Or maybe, wait, are we supposed to be carnivores? Let's hang on.
It's liquefied.
It's a cheese as well.
Cheese,
yeah, kind of stuff.
It's a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
It will stodge the consistency up a little bit, but it comes out as a liquid. It's a thicker liquid, a slightly more yellowy liquid, but liquid nonetheless. We are breaking this stuff down. And the important thing to realize is that if our stomach breaks this stuff down, we absorb the nutrients. If the stomach doesn't break the stuff down, how can we really absorb? So, for example, like gluten.
Yeah, carrot gluten.
So, in terms of gluten, obviously, when it enters the stomach, we don't break the bonds of the proteins like we do animal proteins, right? All the individual amino acids that are liberated now can be uptaken in the small intestine. It's only up to about a chain of 3 peptides that we can absorb at any time. You've got these complicated structures of gluten and things like lectins that they go through the stomach the same, traveling around in a system that they don't belong in. If the gluten, we can't digest that stuff, then by definition, all grains not fit for a human diet.
Well, again, if you don't absorb it, then therefore it's not fit for a human diet. That's a logical leap that may not be true, but certainly a lot of people have a problem with gluten that can cause celiac disease, where those outpouchings, the villi, are actually flattened by the gluten, and certainly there's no problem with not having gluten, and you'll find that in wheat, in grains, but he's arguing with that means we shouldn't have it because we don't absorb it and it can cause these problems.
Because now if we're eating whole grain brown rice, for example, we've just eaten the fiber, won't break down. Plant proteins, gluten. Just because you don't have celiac disease doesn't mean that you're not getting that problem from gluten. And now this gluten structure is traveling through the small intestine. It can't be absorbed. Now it's damaging microvilli. So now you're going to absorb less nutrients because your capacity to pull in nutrients is deteriorating because of the same protein.
Yeah.
It's going to cause potentially permeability in the gut if you're that way inclined.
Yeah.
And now you've set off autoimmunity.
Yeah.
And that's just a plant protein. And then there's the fiber. Then there's these other issues that can, from plants. It seems that anything that causes permeability comes from plants. You can't find a material in a cow that would destroy your colon and destroy your gut.
So that's the theory that the carbs, the grains, the gluten, create a leaky gut. And the leaky gut allows these foreign proteins to be entering the body and creating autoimmunity. It's a theory that is, as good as any other theory. If you talk to a rheumatologist today about these immunologic autoimmune diseases, nobody really can tell you what it is that causes them. Or they'll say it's your body attacking itself, but why? And so one theory is that it's because of the leaky gut allowing these other foreign proteins in, and your body mistakes your body's immunity mistakes your own body for those foreign proteins that are coming in. That's the idea of the leaky gut, and it is from vegetables. So yet another reason perhaps for those who are susceptible to it to not have vegetables and be a carnivore, perhaps.
But that's what we've been told. And so it's interesting,
the exact opposite.
I've seen the opposite. The red meat couldn't possibly cause inflammation in the colon if it doesn't make the colon.
Yeah.
It's liquefied, it's been reabsorbed, it's now it's waste.
Yeah.
In the form of liquid, you now reabsorb the water and the sodium.
Yeah.
And that's just pure waste, which is minimal, which is why a lot of people think that they have constipation.
Yeah.
Because it takes a while for there to be enough.
Well, so that's interesting. If people say red meat causes colon cancer, but what he's saying is that the red meat is digested down to really just the waste products in the colon, then, well, maybe it's the waste of the red meat. But so you can't have this visual image of the red meat sitting on your colon because it's all been digested. That was interesting.
Exactly.
Waste for you to now get a signal, I need to go to the toilet. If you're not experiencing pain, you haven't...
that's quite a common thing on transitioning to carnivore, isn't it? People think they've got constipation.
Yeah.
It's actually that. They don't realise that they need to go as much.
Exactly.
That's all, and everything's fine.
Yeah. From day one, we've based our diets around red meat and anything we can get our hands on, really. But if you think about it as opportunists, what's available all year round? Is it the animals or is it plants?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have a plant to eat that's available all year round if you're lucky. If you live in certain parts, you might be more lucky. But animals are available all year round, and animals got us through. Animals is where we get the nutrition, where we base our diets on. The other things, up to you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, because we make all the glucose we need. We don't need fiber to feed the gut. That's just a myth,
Yeah.
If anyone thinks that fiber, and I've even had this in comments of videos, try to break it down, trying to be super clear, and then you still get, no, but fiber.
Yeah.
And it's really strange that you can't get through to some people. Those people, no one can help. For anyone else who's open-minded, who's willing to actually listen to reason, fiber is non-essential. By definition, you don't ever need to consume any fiber. Fiber, the bone structure of plants, is what props plants upright. This robust structure is basically sugar that doesn't break down. We don't digest. And if it's not something that you can digest, it will be inflammatory. It will cause potentially gut issues and then ripple out, cause multiple other issues. The argument really on their side, fiber's not for us, it's for our gut. Fair enough, true, to a point, right? So why is that then? Because I think these people need to question, what is it then about how we're feeding the gut? What is it about fiber? So once fiber reaches the gut, the organisms that reside there partially ferment this material, which will also cause you all your gas problems and things like this, sometimes obstructions, constipation, diarrhea. But in this process of fermentation, organisms that reside there generate short-chain fatty acids during this fermentation process. Short-chain fatty acids are saturated fats, which they're against. So it's straight away a contradiction, because when we're talking about saturated fats and now ketones, not sugar or fiber or plant materials. Short-chain fatty acids are generated, and then those have to be converted into ketones first before nourishing the cells that line the colon, the colonocytes. It's ketones now, not sugar, right? Not carbohydrates of any sort. And so if it's ketones and we're in nutritional ketosis on either a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet, we are getting the exact same benefits, though you are nourishing all of the cells rather than just the ones that come in contact with the fiber.
Well, that's a lot to unpack, but his physiology is correct. So that the fiber, when it hits the colon, gets fermented into short-chain fatty acids and ketones, and actually feeds the cell, the lining of the cells in the colon. The ketones are part of the fuel. This is the argument for some people that you should have fiber to give ketones to the cells. When if you're in a keto diet, you basically get ketones to those cells through the bloodstream. So it's not an all or nothing thing. And he's spot on to say that fiber is not an essential nutrient. Essential nutrient means that the organism can't live without consuming it. So we have essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, essential vitamins and minerals, but there is no essential carbohydrate. And he's correct about that.
Vice versa kind of thing. And you're nourishing yourself with the best food. It's like an all-in-one stop. Every edible plant in one bowl doesn't do what just a piece of fatty red meat does. Yeah. You don't even have to eat all these whole plant foods that you don't really enjoy eating. And you can eat steak and eggs. You'll be better off. You'll have a healthier gut.
Yeah. That's what when I went carnivore, very, very quickly, stopped all flatulence, stopped burping. She's gone.
Yeah.
Straight away. And I remember earlier you said when you have a meal, sometimes you feel this kind of gurgling almost, like the movement and the sounds and the bubbling. You're not getting nothing.
What they're describing is often misconstrued as irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea predominant, where there's gurgling, and there are medicines for this now. And people are taking these and without being told that it may be the food or is the food that's actually causing the problem. So yeah, that is fascinating that the gas, the heartburn goes away very quickly. And again, that's sort of if you have a medical issue like this, a reason to consider a very low carb or carnivore type of diet.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. I guess it's the same for you now.
Yeah.
And also, as far as I can understand, your colon was essentially blasted away.
I had gone close to 20 times a day.
To the bathroom 20 times in one day. My God.
I was at home and I flared up, and something about this flare, I knew it was the last time. Everything that these guys gave me didn't work at all. They came in and they said, I'm sorry, tomorrow morning, come down with us and we're going to take your colon out. I always say that I have to ask my bag permission to do anything.
Yeah.
It's the boss now. This is when I first really knew what depression was. Sometimes you do these things in the moment and then you calm down, you think, Lee, what are you doing? I could share all sorts of things. I slowly discovered that certain plant foods were causing me real issues, and I developed like a love-hate relationship with food. The first 30 days was just a challenge, BBBE. After 3 weeks, my depression was gone. The way I saw the world, it was like being reborn. You don't need fiber to feed the gut. That's just a myth. If I was to cut a pyramid shape into a piece of pineapple and just swallowed that, that will not change whatsoever as it enters your colon.
It's not taught at university, I can say that firsthand.
We've been lied to about everything. It's hard to not be a little bit bitter because I feel like I've been failed. I'm done. I'm never going back.
Well, so the argument for being a carnivore and the proof, well, I'm not so convinced based on his experience, but it certainly shows that you can live and live without a colon and eat a carnivore type of diet and be healthy, reverse all these different things. I'm particularly convinced by or persuaded in that direction that because the internal anatomy of a human, the stomach, the intestines, the colon, is more like a carnivorous animal than a vegetarian animal that has all these different stomachs and chambers and all that. To me, looking at the internal anatomy of a human, that looks more like a carnivore. The acidity in the stomach is more like a carnivore than an herbivore. But I also see the experience of so many different people who are omnivores, meaning they eat animal products and vegetable products. And then there are a lot of humans who are herbivores, vegetarians, who seem to be healthy and do fine. So basically, I think the human is adaptable to all these different situations. But another question that arises is, what diseases do you want that are associated with these different animals? And there are animals that tend to get certain diseases than others. We'll have to talk about that in a different video. But I would say that I don't know that this is really proof that we're carnivores, but you can be one and function just fine. I hope you like. If you like, please like and subscribe, ring the notification bell, and look for new content on Wednesdays and Fridays. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.